Welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, and today I'm joined by a guest who I'm sure most of you know, if not everybody knows. She is quite world renowned, but I'm going to have her introduce herself anyway because it's my show and why not?
Right.
And so, as you can tell, I'm feeling a little feisty tonight, so bear with us and we'll see where this ride takes us. But I am so blessed to have this guest with us tonight. I think you all are in for a great treat. We were talking backstage and sharing a lot of funny stories, so I know y'all are in for a fun night. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the one, the only, incredible, insightful, the tattooed medium.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good. I hope everybody's good here. Good.
Well, I'm good. You're good. The
We're
audience
all
isn't
good.
saying anything, so we're all good.
That's awesome. All right. So, do you want to know a little bit about me, or how do you want to?
Well, some people may have, just be getting into the paranormal and so may not understand how you're world renowned. So maybe just give a little bit of tidbit for the new people.
Okay. Well, I will. I'm just going to start that. I'm just going to start rambling. How's that?
Sounds like my kind of show. It's what I do.
I'm just going to start rambling. So, I have been gifted being able to communicate with spirit. Okay. I've had this gift since I was little. Um it started definitely when I was little. And it definitely runs in my family, runs on my mother's side of the family. Um how do I say this? My mother is from Austria. So she comes from a long line of very strong German women, but yet very Catholic. So I had to come up from a Catholic upbringing, but yet she understood everything that was going on with me, if that makes sense. So she knew what was, you know, she knew both sides to things. Okay. Um, I'm trying to think how to even start. Like, I mean, I've always seen people, like in the house that I grew up in. I always saw a man in the doorway with he always wore a black jacket and black pants and a tall black hat. And it used to scare me when I was a little kid. I used to turn all the lights on in the house before I go down the hallway, stuff like that. Saw my grandparents after they passed, saw my dogs. I just knew things. Growing up, my mom would always like to play games with me and test me, memory games, and like to test me and see about my memory and stuff like that. But I mean, it goes on through junior high, things that I saw in junior high and high school and on like that. But I do have a lot of pretty amazing stories that we could talk about tonight. But I have filmed on TV. I was asked to film. I wasn't gun ho about it, but I was like, okay, yeah, sure. We'll do it. So I did do one. I did season 2. I think I don't remember what episode it was for Ghost of Shepherdstown, because they needed a Native American scene done. So I worked on that. Also did Sturgis Roadshow, but on that I did worked with a fire group where we did fire performing, and we traveled across country fire dancing.
Wow. How do you get into fire dancing?
It's just something that we always did. We started with hula hoops, and then we just caught them on fire.
Like, you just woke up one day and was like,
Fire,
this hula
fire,
hooping
fire.
is really cool, but if we set them on fire,
It was
I
a
mean,
fire, fire, fire.
how much more exciting could this be?
It actually was pretty exciting. Yeah, so we
How,
had a
how,
whole group of us that went and traveled South Dakota and with the Sturgis Roadshow on the Travel Channel and fire danced.
I know this is going to sound like a stupid question, but how do you have a burning hula hoop going around your body and not get burned?
Well, the hoop it's got the plastic, so it has little metal that sticks out, and then it has the Kevlar that's on the ends. So they're out from the hoop. So it's the little pieces that you burn. It's not the hoop itself. And then you
Oh,
have
okay.
not just the hoop, you have fire fans and um, fire fingers. They have them where you have the ends of the fingers are burning. One girl wore a fire belt where she, did a little twerk thing and did that and yeah, did all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah,
I'm trying to picture a twerking fire belt
I will
because
have to send you the videos.
that just sounds hilarious, but so cool at the same time.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, but yeah, I managed that group, a whole bunch of girls. I think the first group that we went the first year, that was the Sturgis Roadshow. I think we had 10 to 12 girls, ladies that went out there and performed. But that was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, and I'm
It was
betting being up north, it wasn't so hot, but still, we're drinking a lot of fluids after that dance.
dry. It's very dry. South Dakota is it's just a dry state compared to where I'm at. I'm in West Virginia, so we have a lot of trees. It's like the difference is, and then when, of course, you see storms come out there, you
You
see a
just
storm
can't.
coming, you better go.
Oh, I imagined you were going to say you get your hoops out and you start going to town.
No, no,
Bring
no,
that
no.
rain.
No, you run. But I did meet a lot of amazing artists. I mean, I did get to meet Toby Keith and Stevie Nicks and, worked with a lot of artists. So, I mean, a lot of amazing people. Eric Church, Def Leppard. Um, there's just so many people we worked with
I'm,
out there.
I'm just picturing how you had all these music people that are like constantly doing videos and stuff of these like really extreme things. And yet, I don't think I've ever heard of fire dancing in the back of a
No,
song.
no. All right. Well, I'll have to send you the videos. You can look them up on YouTube. I would have to send you the links to the business page, not my personal one, but the business ones for the when we traveled. It was pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I imagine traveling, yeah, doing the shows
It's like
there.
being an
You,
open act. It's like being the opening act.
right,
It's like getting people wound up and excited, you know,
yeah.
before like say Stevie Nicks gets on stage that we got to be on the stage. So, it's like getting everybody pumped up.
Yeah, I'm just picturing, they're there, you're there. It's like, why not mix the two? One night only. Nobody, not making a music video of it though, but,
Hey,
yeah,
$100
that's-
tips are good.
yeah.
You know,
So, not to digress and sidetrack, but I feel remiss if I didn't ask, what was it like on the set of Ghost of Shepherdstown?
this is where I ask myself, it was stressful. It was good. It was good. It was interesting. it was very interesting. Um, I wasn't real pleased with the whole filming. They had a medium on there through the whole thing. Okay. And this person, I'm not going to use names, but this person wasn't happy that I was on there for that one show. She wasn't thrilled that I was going to be there. And she pretty much made it like really miserable the whole time. It was just like, it's just like, it was dumb, it was just kind of silly. But other than that, just filming, it, it was long, very long days, it's like it was a day or two. It was very long.
Yeah, I've heard stories of you're up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, filming
Hmm.
till about midnight.
Hmm.
And of that stretch of time, you may get half an hour of footage.
Right.
It's
They
like,
you
what?
film all these hours and you're like, where's all this footage? And they're like, oh, they showed you. Oh, they showed my butt literally walking up a set of steps. I'm like, of all this filming, you've showed the cameraman following my rear end up the set of stairs? What's
There are some women that might make that a compliment.
I know, but I was sitting there going, seriously? Like of all this time
Yeah.
filming and then all this editing. But no, they literally did that. It was funny. But it I
So,
don't
how
know.
did you get tagged for the Native American episode?
Because I have family that's that I'm like adopted into that is Native American that live in South Dakota on Pine Ridge Reservation. So I had who's Reed Brown. Reed Brown was one of the main guys that was doing the drumming and the singing during that. I had him come in and work with me on that. So just on
That's
the
pretty
drumming and
cool.
singing. Yeah.
The Lahota, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Lakotas. Yep. So I got that's pretty much it. It was just very long. It was nice. I mean, they give you lunch and
I would
drink.
hope dinner
Yeah,
too.
you talk. Yeah, you sit and talk, and it was okay. That's what I'll say. I mean, except for dealing with the drama, the dumb kind of drama that was kind of foolish. It's the only thing that bothered me. When somebody tells me, I mean, this lady was like, "You're gonna fall down those stairs today. I'm just telling you." And I'm like, "Unless you're pushing me, honey, I'm not gonna fall down them steps."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Are you putting a hex on me here or something? What are you trying to do? Hex me?" Because I don't fall for that. Literally, I'm not falling.
that kind of leads to to the story of everybody's saying a lot of the stuff on some of the TV shows is faked, and so it's like when you hear you're gonna fall upstairs, it's like you can't help in the back of mind going, "Is this scripted? Is something supposed to happen?"
Right. Yeah, I didn't like the script, I will say the scripted part, the ending where they had the moccasins and they were like offering them to the spirit. I I I just didn't understand all that. It kind of
Yeah,
I think that really threw that whole episode down the drain. I think
I
that
feel like that entire show, just the way it was from start to finish, the end of the show, it seemed like they were trying too hard to prove something and it got lost in translation because it's like one story, then it was a different story, then a different. And it's like, what is going on? What? There's no
right,
fluidity.
right. I mean, Mike King, he was great to work with. He's the police chief in Shepherdstown. He's really good. He was a good guy to work with. Um, and Elizabeth and shoot, the other can't remember the other guy right now. It's been so many years. They were good, but yeah, it just like you said, it just kind of, they're so focused on the water and the way everything was set up in Shepherdstown. And I'm like, but
Yeah. Was it
it's,
Bill Hartley
oh, Bill Hartley was there too. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Bill,
Nick Groff?
Nick. Yeah. Nick. Yeah. Yeah. But you didn't see those guys too much because they were the main guys. So you didn't see them.
Yeah, that was one of the weird things too about the show is you tune in because of these people and you're like, what's going on? How come they're not interviewing these people? How come we're not seeing like we normally see?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, what Reed Brown did with his drumming and his singing at the fire pit was legit. Like he did a beautiful job doing his Native American with he was on spot doing his thing. And everything else was just, I don't know. I kind of felt bad for him. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because
yeah.
it was so real and for him, but yet I felt like the shoes and all that was just not. It shouldn't even have been put into the whole play of it.
Yeah.
But you'd have to watch the episode. If you haven't seen the episode, guys, watch the episode. Then we would understand. It would make sense. It'd make more sense to you if you watch it.
And it's pretty much on every streaming service, so you
Yeah,
shouldn't have trouble finding it and not have to pay for the episodes.
right.
Not that I'm saying don't pay for the episodes. If you want to, you can.
You can if you feel like spending the money.
I'm sure some proceeds may eventually find their way to you, but probably not.
Probably not. Probably not. I'm not sweating it. It was just a time in my life where I got asked to do it. I was like, they're like, we just need somebody to do this. We need some help. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and I'm curious, you saying being brought up with ties to the family and with the Lahotas, were you raised by them or did they just adopt you in as going, you seem to have our spirit, so you're like going to
Yeah,
be
I,
one of us?
I became very close with them. I
Okay.
became very close with them. Yeah. I'm still very close with them, with their with the families that were there. Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
that impacts your gifts and your connections and doing all your paranormal stuff?
It it definitely it definitely bothers them. They don't like when I do it.
Really?
I know they don't like it because that's to be left alone. That's a huge no-no. I I almost got I would say shunned. I almost got like shunned by them for doing it, but not all of not the elders more than the younger family members are more upset that I do it, you know. But they understand it, so I don't know how to explain it. It's
Yeah,
just
because that's interesting. Because I know a lot of indigenous who are or Native American, whatever title you want to give them,
mm-hmm,
they want the connection with the past, and so you have that, and so it's like,
mm-hmm,
why would they be frowning upon that's what they're wanting? And here you are offering it to them, and it's like it's confusing to me why they would be like, no.
right. Because a lot of them are very much by the old ways, and they believe that spirit is to be left alone. You know what I mean? They're very spiritual people, and they see and hear things, but they keep it. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but they
Well, I
just
guess that's true because like the
don't
vision
open it.
quest would
Mm-hmm.
be between the chief and the individual, or the
Mhm.
shaman and the individual. You
Right.
didn't just go around telling everybody, "Hey, I went in on a run, and guess what I saw?"
Right. That's kind of like that bothers me when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm a shaman" or something. I'm like, "No, you're not. You were not born a shaman. Were you born a shaman? No." Like, no, you're not a shaman. But you know, that's
So
the way we think.
yeah, and I have a question for you that I bet the way I'm wording it, you have never been asked before.
Mm-mm.
And that is, what is one of your experiences as a medium that impacted you the most and had the most altering effect on you?
Oh, I can answer that one. I can definitely answer that one. And I will definitely get into this. So I'm going to go into the year 2009, 2008, 2009, where I was with somebody in my life. I was married to somebody for just a couple years that I felt like I had to be with. Um, and it was a really bad situation. It turned into a very bad situation to the point where I felt like this was past life stuff. Okay. Like the reason we were together was past life issues. There was that why we were put back together. Um, while we were together, I would keep hearing messages of things that he was doing, but these are not things that are normal, like, oh, he might be out there doing this or that. No, this was serious stuff. Okay. Um, very serious stuff to the point where, I was done. Like I had to leave. I mean, when spirit would say, "Hey, get up, look here, you're going to see something," and I would go and look, and it was there, and I was like, "Wow, okay." Moving forward, he went. He left for a month to work in Florida. I remember laying in bed, and I had a breakdown because I said to spirit, I said, "I need to know that I'm doing the right thing." And I started crying and screaming and yelling. And I was yelling at my spirit guide, my main spirit guide. And I was saying, please. And I don't know if you've ever had anybody or yourself ever been to the lowest part of your point in your life where you're just breaking down and you're just done. And I was at that point screaming and crying. And I was yelling for her to step forward and show me that she was real, that that's who was showing me these signs. Okay. And I asked her to show herself to me. And it was absolutely mind blowing because as I was laying in the bed next to me, I had a silhouette of a face pop up next to me. And it was just white and everything went calm, peaceful, calm. And her face just sat there. And I looked over at her and she had no hair, no eyes, just the face. And it was beautiful. And I said, "Oh, okay. I got it. I know you're real. I'm okay. I'm going to be fine." And and I just kept saying, "I'm going to be okay. Thank you." And I kept thanking her. And she just slowly disappeared and she just faded away. And after that, I said, "I know who I'm really talking to. My main guide," and I know her name. "My main guide is real." And I'm like, wow, that was a heck of an experience. Like, I can't even explain it, the experience that I seen when I saw her. Um, but I've had
And,
many experiences, but that one was amazing.
and what I find amazing, and this kind of happened to me on one of my explaining a experience I had,
Hmm.
and something I'd never thought of. And when you're telling the story and you're saying like you've seen her with no eyes and no hair, and you were okay with that, most people would be freaking out, going ballistic, going, "Oh my god!" You have no eyes.
Mhm.
What are you? But yet you're sitting there calm and going, okay, you're real. I got it.
It was so peace. It was just the feeling that she gave me when she was there, the whole energy in that space was unbelievable. It was at peace. It was like when I was younger, my grandmother was dying in the hospital, and she was just a grumpy lady. She was just a grump. God love her. And I remember asking for a flower. She said, "Just take one. What am I need them for? I'm dying." I said, "All right." So I took a flower, right? And I was like 13, 14, and I sat in a waiting room. And the waiting room it was all the family members and everybody's talking. And I sat the flower on this windowsill, and the window was open. And all of a sudden, all the voices around me went quiet. And I felt this huge warm breeze blow me, like, blow right through me. And I heard say, "Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right." And the flower blew from the top of the thing. And I said, "Wow, that feeling was amazing." And that was the same feeling that I got when she was here, but I didn't feel that breeze, but it was like that peace that came to me at that point was the same peace when she showed up in my bedroom that night. Like, that was mind blowing. That was pretty cool. But it's very peaceful when they do present themselves.
Yeah, and I know a lot of mediums kind of get into paranormal because they're like, yeah, we can help tell the story of what's going on here. We can help the investigators doing this or that.
Mhm.
What drove you to want to become in the paranormal field when you were in it? What was your motive
Curious.
or goal?
My curiosity was I was more curious about spirits that have crossed over compared to spirits that haven't crossed over. I wanted to understand the difference more and how I'm communicating with the different types. And I learned, I learned quick. I learned pretty quick the difference in the two of them and how peaceful spirits that have crossed over compared to spirits that have not crossed over.
Can you share some of what you learned with
Yeah,
us?
yeah. I mean, I've done some. We've gone into some buildings, doing paranormal work, where I would literally feel them try to come through my back and try to trance through me, like literally talk through me. Um, one time I let it happen because I felt safe and it was a lady. Um, and I let her do it, and I had other people there, and that was the only first and last time I let that happen. But I did. Um, where am I at here? But
You had a spirit come into you.
yes, the
And
ones would try to come into me, but then I'd always have my husband try to. He would always just stand there, and he would always try to block them. You know what I mean? And be like, no. He was like the guardian. So, but if I felt them coming through my back, I knew it wasn't good. So, but yeah, I've had many psychic attacks. And psychic attacks are bad because it puts you down for weeks. Like, I won't want to do readings for a while or anything. So it can be really rough on your body. Mediums can take a real beating if they don't protect themselves. And even if you protect yourself, there's no real protection. Like, they'll still
right.
get through.
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
Yeah. I mean, I've had many surgeries being attacked. Like the one surgery I was talking to you about, I've had many of those, but during one of my surgeries, and I'll tell you this cool story. I I was I was under anesthesia, and I don't feel like it was a near death experience. I feel like this was something I was just being shown. Okay, for a while I said, "Was I dying?" But no, I wasn't dying. I was being shown something. So I had a man while I was under anesthesia take me by the hand, and And I asked him, am I dying? And he said no. And I asked him this many times during the experience. But we walked through this huge wall that was almost like water, but it wasn't. It was the energy. And we started floating up, and I started seeing layers in the sky, the dimensions. I saw layers and all kinds of stuff, but I saw different dimensions. And people think I'm crazy, but I saw dimensions like aliens. I saw dimensions like where Bigfoot or Mothman or elementals would be, or, stuff like that could travel. And then then I was taken to this one dimension where when we got there and we stood there and it was just, again, it was a beautiful feeling. And I saw these huge temples, and the buildings had pillars, and the really big pillars, like at the White House, the big white ones.
Right.
And I said, where are we at? And he said, this is something you need to learn. This is something you need to understand. And I said, am I going to die? Am I dying? And he kept saying, no, you're not dying. He said, just listen. It's kind of like telling me, just shut up. Shut up and listen. But no, he didn't say that. He was just, listen. He said, this is where you go after you die. You go into these buildings. You go through your life with the scrolls, and then you move on. And I'm like, oh, I got it. It makes sense. And then next thing I know, the nurses were like, Melody, wake up. Come on, Melody, breathe. Come on, breathe, Mel. Come on, you got it. You can breathe. Come on, breathe for us. And that's all I kept hearing him telling me, to breathe. And the next thing I know, I'm awake and I'm like, oh man, here I am. Here I am. Oh, well.
Guess I wasn't dying after all.
No, I really was enjoying. I wanted to know more about that building, but it was very interesting.
No, and I will share with you, the part where you said, people think I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That actually validates a theory that I've had of, the Sasquatch and all these cryptids are dimensional, not terrestrial, and that's why they're not seen all the time. And so that's kind of, in a way, you had no idea I had that theory. And so when you mentioned it, I was like, how cool is that you've seen them on different dimensions?
Yeah, they're layers. It's almost like going into a construction building and the building's not done. It just has floors.
Right.
So if you picture that, but in the universe, that's like the dimensions. That's kind of like how you want to picture it. But they were on different layers. Everything was on different layers.
And it makes sense, too, how they could be here without being here. And how they're like glimpses that we see of them, not full, like, we don't see, like, you can see a plane flying across the sky and you're like, yeah, it's a plane going on its destination. But UFOs are like short. You never see one just going from like California all the way to Washington.
No, they go pew, pew, pew. I've seen them going out west. They're crazy.
And so that's kind of cool confirmation of, they're here, but they're not here. And I was on an investigation, and everybody keeps saying, oh, you're seeing these residual haunts. You're seeing, this person doing this. They've done for centuries, probably, or decades, depending on how old the spirit looked. And then somebody asked me an interesting question, and it goes, what if you were seeing a parallel timeline? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, what if the dimensional veil was so thin in that location, you were seeing another timeline in another dimension, and they didn't understand seeing you, you didn't understand seeing them, and that's why there was no real communication or anything. And I was like, I can't argue that. That is very true, a true possibility that we
Mhm.
never would think of, that we don't think about, or I never hear investigators going, yeah, so are you from the 1800s or are you from another timeline? It's like we just don't think about it, but it's such a possibility that's out there, and it may explain so many of these what we call residual haunts
Right.
of like a mother taking care of a child. It may be a mother taking care of her child in another dimension
Mhm.
that we're seeing, and it's their bedtime. That's why it happens all the time at this time.
Right. Right. That's crazy. I brought kids home before from a cemetery, from a graveyard, I should say.
I
Didn't
would
want to
hope
bring
not
them home.
voluntarily.
No, didn't want to bring them home. I got to this graveyard and I said, wow, that's interesting. It says graveyard. You know what I mean? So I was
Yeah.
kind of, us, me and my daughter, we walked over and we looked and like all the stones, like everybody died within 6 months. So we're like, oh, it had to be like yellow fever or plague or something. So family members all died. And that's like, all of a sudden I got really sick. And I said, I'm going to get sick. She said, oh my God, me too. She goes, I feel terrible. Like, let's get out of here. So we jumped back in my Jeep and we came back home. And that evening, that was in the same house I was in. I lived in a A-frame um little cabin. So like I lived up in I had the oh gosh, I can't
The
think.
law.
The loft. Thank you. I was up in the loft, and then when you look down at night, it's all window, so it's like a reflection. And I heard something, and I looked over, and I looked through the window at the window, and I saw a little boy. He was probably about 5, 6 years old, and he had black hair, and he had a bowl cut, like a bowl haircut, and he had a baby in his hand, and he saw me, and he ran to the back of the house, and I said, "Oh no, I brought somebody home." So I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta run." So I ran downstairs, and as soon as I ran to that back bedroom, that's where my daughter's room is, she swings the door open and she goes, "Oh my God, Mom, some little boy hands me a baby. What do I do?" I said, "Well," I said, "I guess we're gonna have to make them go on." It took us like 2 weeks to get them to move on. They didn't leave for like 2 weeks.
I gotta admit, I was half expecting you to say, "You better raise that kid right."
Right? Oh no. I was like, nope, it's time to get them out.
Yeah.
Nope, not keeping them here. Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. That was neat. My oldest daughter, she sees a lot of grids in the universe. She sees a lot of stuff too when it comes to the universe, dimensions and stuff like that. My oldest daughter.
Yeah,
So just
and
thinking
so
about that.
yeah, and I'm curious because somebody was asking me something today about seeing stuff, and as a medium, did you always see like what we would call apparition style, where you saw the person there, or did it start out as like seeing shadows, and then as you strengthened it, you were getting more form, or
You know,
how did it work for you?
when I was a kid, like I said, I literally physically saw them after they passed. Um, I feel like before they transitioned, I saw them. Um, but like I said, the man that stayed in the house that was, I feel like a door watcher that protected that back room where my mom had her business. I almost feel like he was my mom's grandfather because he, how do I say this? He always had a top hat and a black suit, and he had taken his life at a young age. And I'm always feel like that possibly was him that was back there in that room. So, but yeah, long story short, I feel like I've always seen them. Um, I would always see shadows. And then I kind of got to the point now where I've been doing this since I was a kid and I'm 57. So, um, I'm to the point now. I I make it like a rule. Like I work with my guides, and I I make it a rule that I don't want to see spirit. I don't want spirit in my room. I don't want spirit in my bathroom. I don't, I set ground rules. So now I usually don't see them. They will throw things around sometimes here in the house. I feel like my dad came to visit me the other day when he threw a stuffed animal across the room at me, but you know, I knew I kind of felt like that was him because of where it was. Um, but I
Yeah,
don't
at least yeah, at least they're listening to you and not making themselves seen.
No, it's the house is pretty I feel like the house has been pretty protected. Yeah. And sometimes like when I do my live, I used to do a lot of lives all the time. My clients would always watch the camera because they would watch because I would always get a lot of orbs at night. That's what they'd always watch for orbs in here. I'd get a lot of orbs. They'd always like, "Oh, I saw the orb." You know what I mean? They love to sit and watch the orbs, but
Yeah,
that's when they're
without
lovely to
getting
them.
without getting in too much trouble. Because we all know about the dramas in the paranormal field. What's your take on the orb effect? Is it spirit or is it dust or what is an orb?
Okay, so a lot of people will tell you it's dust. And there is dust. Yes. When you walk through an old building, sure, there is dust. Okay. Some people will walk through an old dusty building and take a picture and are like, oh my God, look at all these orbs, right? It's just, it's like figuring out what's what. Okay. Some people see raindrops and they'll think it's orbs. I have had, I have some pretty freaking amazing pictures that I have taken in my room that are literally shapes that blow people's minds. Like I posted them on my page a while back, but that are orbs. And I believe in orbs because it's light energy and we all go back to light energy. Okay. When you pass, when I pass, when my dogs pass, we all go back to light energy. And that's how we move. And
Yeah,
that's how they try to show themselves.
to me, when you take a picture and there's a bunch of specks on the camera and you can zoom in and there's some geometry to it or
Hmm.
a face or a number in it, that's an orb.
Hmm.
If it's just like a blob of light, I could say, yeah, that could be a piece of dust because I don't know dust that would take the time to go, oh, wait a minute, I might be on camera. Let me make a cool geometric shape inside real quick.
Right.
Might get photographed tonight. Better
It's
put my
true.
dress up on.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. I've like I said, I have a picture where one day I was sitting here at the desk and I like to doodle especially when I'm like connect with spirit and stuff. It's just a habit. I like to draw or that's how I connect. And one day I had a light pop up here on my paper and there was no other light to bring in. And it was literally a shape of an angel, but it was like sideways. I would have to send you a picture of it. And it was insane. And I looked at it and I'm like, where in the world is this light coming from? But it was literally on my piece of paper. And I'm like, that is nuts. And then I'll have them like on my doors. I'll have like really crazy shapes of light that pop in. It's pretty insane. Usually
Yeah,
shaped as either wings or they look like wings or they're moving.
yeah.
But
My
or
favorite
yes.
photo that I took that I view it as either an angel or a fairy. I kind of lean more towards fairy, but it's a bright light that looks like it's got a little tiny wing on the back,
Mhm.
and it's in the air going towards my house. And yes, there's a lamppost diagonal to the house, and somebody goes, oh, well, that's just probably light from the lamppost. So I went 3 times on different nights going, if it's the lamppost, I should be able to recreate it. I've
Mhm.
never been able to recreate it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, the lamppost doesn't, to sit there and go, well, today we'll shine, maybe a third of the intensity so we can mess with these people's photos.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, lamppost is a lamppost. It's shining irregardless whatever the conditions are outside. But I've never been able to recreate it. So I genuinely feel like that photo, that first one that I took,
Hmm.
and I broke my cardinal rule of paranormal. I only took one, not three. But I was like, I felt like that was them telling me just that's all I needed, and that was a gift to me.
Right. Yeah, those little fairies, you got to watch out for them.
I know,
They're
you
either
know,
nice or they're evil. I mean, you got to play nice with them. They can be mean.
that's true. And I'm wondering, with being a medium, I'm curious. One, if ever on your investigations you come across what we call elementals or different type of spirits, maybe ETs, however you want to call them.
Hmm.
Do you one see those, or two, how do you tell what, like, you're looking at going, oh, that's a earth elemental. Let's be a little more cautious here. Does that ever happen to you?
Well, Ray actually saw a gnome on a fence line, and it was
Really?
insane. It was crazy. Yes, physical eye. Yep, it was nuts. And we dealt with a, what do you want to call it? Not really, wasn't an investigation, but we did a we had to go over to someone's house and work on their house for them because she had little fairy houses everywhere out in the yard. Well, she kept having things go wrong. Okay, she fell, she broke a bone, she broke her back, she fell out of the pool. Like things kept like breaking on her. You know what I mean? Like she kept having accidents. She couldn't
How do you
figure out
fall
what.
out of a pool?
Yeah, she kept having the weirdest things happening to her. So me and him went over to the house and he found it. He's like, well, you got like these little fairy, you're just inviting trouble in your yard. First off, he's like, and it got these holes in the yard where you could tell that these elementals are hiding. He's like, this is like the worst thing you could do. So he put some railroad ties up for her and some protection, and I feel like that helped her a lot. Told her she'd probably get rid of the little make believe stuff that she has all over the place. It's not really safe. But yeah, and a lot of people don't, they don't believe that, but it really is true. It's, you know, stuff's dangerous.
Yeah, and
They have to-
especially if you don't know what you're doing with it.
Right. I mean, people think it's cute. It's okay. Let's decorate the yard with a bunch of cute little yard ornaments. You know what I mean? But if you're not sure what you're doing, you probably should probably be careful.
Yeah,
You're just inviting him in. just you're just inviting the whole. Just have a cemetery in your yard too. Just do whatever you want. Shit.
you know, you laugh about that, but I've heard stories where little kids were playing out in the backyard, and all of a sudden they start screaming, and the parents are like, "What?" And they're like, "What are all these tombstones doing back here?" And they're like, "What are you talking about, tombstones?" And they find out they have a cemetery in their
Oh
yard.
my god. I'd have
But
moved.
yeah,
Nah,
it's
I'd
like,
have been done. Yep,
it,
I would have moved.
yeah. But then it's like, in the back of my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, you guys have mowed the lawn how many times, and you've never noticed tombstones in your garden or in your
Uh,
yard?
right. Like,
How
how do
is
you
this
not know?
possible?
Right? How do you not know this? Right? I got a pretty crazy story for you. So, middle school, okay? Middle school. My science teacher, I kept hearing messages about him. And I went to my counselor and I told my counselor um that my middle school teacher, I said, I told him the name. I said, he's doing really bad things. I said, I hear he's messing with some of the kids in the class, like some of the boys. And
Uh-oh.
she got really upset with me and she said, "Where did you hear this?" And I said, "In my head." And I remember, we went through this whole thing and she goes, "Well, that's ridiculous." And I got in a lot of trouble for this. Okay. My mom had to come to school and she gave them hell because she said, "Well, don't question." My mom told them not to question me because they were like trying to do what do they call the ink splat test for me?
Oh, the Rocher.
Yeah, they were trying to do that because they thought I was nuts. So anyway, well, he ended up moving to another school. And then I found out a few years later that he went to a church and committed suicide and left a note because he was molesting boys. And I was like, and they all thought I was crazy, but nobody listened to me.
Yeah, that's the sad thing of reality is the children have all this untapped wisdom because it's unfiltered,
Hmm.
and tell them to suppress it, and then later in life tell them, "Oh yeah, that stuff we told you not to do and to suppress. Can you
Right.
unsuppress it now to help us?" It's like,
Right.
why should I?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty sad. Yeah, it was pretty sad. But it was also a learning experience, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of learning there too. So, but it was
So what is
interesting. It was
yeah?
an interesting story.
So what has been your wildest experience as a medium, either your side or from the client side, that you can share without giving any information about the person?
Right. About the other people. Well, I think one of the best, no, I don't know about wildest. I think I think it could be wild. Yeah. I did a big group reading. It was about 50 plus people at a restaurant years ago, probably 10 years ago or more. I don't know. It's been a while. Um, and I remember walking around the restaurant doing, just talking to people. And this one lady, I looked over at her and I said, "I got to sit down with you." I said, "Your mom's coming through and I got to talk to you." So I sat next to her in the chair and I said, "You need to go get your veins checked. You got something seriously going on that that's really rare. Your mom's trying to tell me about it. I don't understand what the heck she's saying it is, but this is pretty serious." And she looked at me and I thought her mouth was going to hit the table. And she goes, "Yeah, my mom passed." She goes, "So there's something wrong with me?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't mean to scare you, but I'm scaring you."
Yeah.
And I'm going to scare you. I said, "She's telling me you need to get checked." So this lady, who's still a amazing client with me now, she went and she went to the doctor. They kind of blew her off. She went to another doctor, heart doctor. They sent her to UVA, a big um, university, and get checked. Come to find out, she has some rare blood disorder, something with her veins. She has something really rare. And what happens is it clogs up and she ends up having like strokes and she didn't know. And she ended up having two like strokes in her head, like up in her head. And she said if it wasn't for me, she would never know. They would never known and she would have died from it. But that was a pretty wild story. But I had her write out me a whole thing because I wanted to put this into into like a journal. But I've had a few people, and another lady that I just literally read the other day. I did a group reading the other day, and she goes, "I don't know if you remember me, but 5 years ago, you told me that I had to go to a doctor, something about something she was taking." She goes, "Thank God she went because it was really bad." But see, spirit's only going to tell me these messages um when you really need them. You know what I mean? Like if there's something going on that it's not interfering. Does that make sense to you? You know what I mean?
It does.
It's we're not interfering at that moment. If it's in God's hands or the God's hands, then they're not going to tell me. You know what I mean? If it's that person's time to go, they're not going to tell me about it. But if it can be taken care of or helped or cured or worked on, looked out after, then they're going to tell me these things. But I've done a lot of health stuff, a lot of health stuff for
That's
folks.
really cool. And gosh, I have so many more questions for you, but unfortunately, we're at the hour mark or pretty close to it. So I want to be respectful because it is late for you, and we had agreed upon that. So, real quick, with we have like 2 minutes left.
Mhm.
Where can people find you if they want to do a reading? If you're doing readings, or
Um, well, they can message me on Facebook or they can just email me. Email me is the best, the tattooed medium at Gmail. That's the best way. Or you can just Google it. Just Google the tattooed medium, Melody Bruch, and it'll pop up on Google and you can just search me. Go to my website, tattooedmedium.com. Find me there. Just message me there. It's probably easier. Yeah.
very cool. And thank you for coming on and trusting
Yeah.
me because I know being strangers and
Right.
not
So,
doing podcasts for a while, it's like, do you really want to trust this person to come out? So thank you for trusting me.
oh, yes, yes. It's been a while, but that's good. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and if you ever want to come back on, let me know and we'll see about getting another
Definitely.
episode.
Yeah, that would be fun. Awesome.
Well, thank you and hope you get some rest and spirits keep listening to you and not bothering you and
Yeah,
follow
not
the
tonight. Not tonight. They're going to leave me alone tonight, guys. Definitely.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you to everybody in the chat room. Everyone's watching. Please remember to like and follow along because you never know when we may have the tattooed medium back on. So,
Sweet.
with have a good night, everyone, and thank you for watching. Bye
All right.
bye.
Thank you.